Hello, everyone. Okay, so obviously this is not what we normally do, but after talking with chat on Friday, this was something that there were a few people that were interested in. So it's just a one-off. It's just kind of for fun. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what fluid art is, it's like paint. I mean, it's technically painting, yes, but I actually think a lot of it is more chemistry than anything else, really, just because of all of the mixing of chemicals. Well, chemical, I suppose you're doing. Oh my goodness, I set down my. There it is. So I teach this class. Actually, let me back up. I'm jumping right in. Haven't even said hi to everyone. Hi. Hi, Philip. Let's see. And Yvonne. Yay, I'm home on a Monday for a change. This sounds interesting. Oh, I'm so glad, Yvonne. Jim, Tyler, Safa. Good morning, everyone. Okay. Everyone can hear me okay, right? All right. So anyway, I teach this class in IRL, in real life, here locally in town. But the perks of going to the class versus here is when you go to the class, like, you get all the supplies, all the paint, like, you don't have to bring anything and you get to create it there. For this, I'm just going to be kind of showing you how I do it. We got a couple canvases here. Oh, you are not going to get in these cords already. Okay, I've got to get the cats out. She's already under the desk and wrapping up in cords, and I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff here, and I do not need to be managing 007 Kitty here, who wants to, come on, out you go, play limbo with my camera cords. Out you go. Okay, all right, let's try this again without the kitty cats. All right, cool. Thanks, Jim. So anyway, we have a couple canvases here. This is a level 3 gallery wrapped canvas. So this is something that I would use in one of my art shows. It's got this nice thick border, and on the back you can see that the canvas is folded under and stapled in, not to mention it's sealed here. So this is going to be the difference between this and, say something, this is just Walmart. This is a simple one. So if it's just for you, it's not a big, you don't need to get anything fancy. You get like a 2-pack of this. I think this was like $3 or $4, but you can see the difference on the back, how it's just folded over and stapled. So for at home, and it's much thinner, this is a great budget option because these cost quite a bit more than these ones do. But when I make paintings for the gallery, this is the level, this is like the professional level that you need for showing at the gallery. So we might cover both of these. We're definitely going to be painting on this one. And then if we have a little bit extra paint, we'll do it on this one too. Okay, so you need a number of things for fluid art. Obviously, you need your canvas. This is just a drop cloth. I got a roll of drop cloth that, like at Lowe's painting stream. Yep. At Lowe's, I just trim it to be the size that I need. Obviously, I have a kind of a small space to work with just because, we're putting it under the camera. Other supplies that you need, and I put kind of a general supplies list in the description. I'm going to go back and put something more detailed a little bit later, but it does give you the general idea. So to start with, you obviously need paint. There are a couple, I've found there are brands that work well, brands that don't work well. These 3 brands are all, well, I guess these 2 are the same. This is a Fine Touch. I got these all at Hobby Lobby, and these are all perfectly fine brands to get that mix well with our blending medium. So there's Master's Touch, Basic, and a Fine Touch. A Fine Touch is a little bit less expensive, but when you need like bulk colors like white, it's handy to get. If I can choose, if I have a preference, like unless like these are on sale or something, I like the Basics brand. Now you can get, there are places now that sell specifically like fluid art paint. I haven't used those, so I can't vouch for them. But they do have those. So if that's something you wanted to experiment with, you could do that. The other thing that you need is silicone. So you can see this is a well-loved bottle of silicone. This is just treadmill belt lubricant. Like literally you use it to lubricate your treadmills. I don't have a treadmill. I use it for this. I haven't gotten the link for it yet, but I just get this on Amazon also. So it's pretty inexpensive. As far as what my recipe is going to use today, it's a budget-friendly recipe. So anyway, what did I say? I said it was I called it something on Friday. Anyway, the point is everything here is going to be pretty budget friendly. So like I said, you don't need any kind of fancy canvas or anything, you know, just this way is fine. You can also do wood panels, but the problem with wood panels, just something to keep in mind, is because it's wood and you're putting so much moisture into this paint that the wood absorbs the moisture. And I've had multiple times where the wood panels, because you can get like, it's like a canvas, so it's got, you know, the walls on the side and it's wood on top, but the problem is because it absorbs so much moisture, the panel buckles and creates a little bit of a hump on the top. And so like I've had paint run off. Eventually it flattens out and it all dries off. But the other risk also is some of the wood panels, it's not a solid wood panel. It's created by using like little slats that they've put together. And because the wood is contracting so much because of the moisture, those panels separated from each other and create a crack all along the edge of it. In fact, I'm gonna go grab one and show it to you to see what I mean, because that happened, that made the painting unsellable. So I mean, I keep it here and I hang it up, but I'm gonna show you what I mean. One second. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple things. These are older ones I've done. I've changed my technique a little bit, but you can see here. You see this line here, and if you look on the back, you see how it's 3 different slats. So that's what happened, is the wood expanded and everything, and it absorbed all the moisture, and by the time it completely dried, then it created this crack right along it. So I wasn't able to do anything with it. The other kind of panels, now this is one, this was an experiment painting. I never really did this one again. I tried putting these texture beads in it and it's kind of neat, but this was before I had perfected my formula for how I was going to get the fluid art to look. But I grabbed this one so I could show you. This is a style of wood panel that is not made with slats. Now, this also still absorbs the water. I had a larger one that was like 12 by 18, and because it was so big, it created the bowing. This one never had any bowing, so the smaller ones are a little bit less likely to do that. Okay, other supplies. Optional, a torch that you can use, which I'll show at some point. You have painter's tape, which you'll use to cover the back of your canvas. You will need cups, but there are a couple different options, because obviously there's going to be a lot of waste involved with you know, reusing plastic cups. So like, I couldn't find it this morning, but I have like a ceramic measuring cup that I can mix large amounts in. Also, I reuse my kids' Play-Doh containers. Once they're Play-Doh, I mean, this Play-Doh dries out so fast and they go through it. So I just gathered them all up and washed them, and you can reuse Play-Doh containers. So there are other more ecologically friendly ways to do this so that you're not producing nearly as much waste. One of the other things is you need mixing sticks. So like I have these popsicle style sticks, size depending on what size cup you're doing. That being said, this could also be potentially wasteful. So one of the other more eco-friendly things you can do is get a small, if you get a number of small whisks. And so what I do is, you know, I have a couple paper towels on hand, or even if you don't have paper towels, you can get, you know, cloth. So there's lots of reusable ways to do this. I just keep a regular cup of water on hand, and after I mix it, I just swish it around like you would a paintbrush. But the little tiny whisks are great for that. Not to mention, because you get it mixed so much more, because the whisk helps to break up any clumps of paint. You also need a scale. You can see mine is pretty well loved. It's just a standard scale that's like ounces, milliliters. I usually do ounces, because you are going to need to measure your paint down to the ounce, which brings us to our formula. So this is This one is an older one. It's not updated, but this is what I tend to hand out at my classes. So, you know, we've got the steps, you know, color choices, preparing the canvas, measuring, mixing, and paint. Like, these are all the steps of what you're going to be doing, what you can talk about, tilting, drying times, all that kind of stuff. Here, let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so your recipe is going to be 1 part acrylic paint, 2 parts blending medium, 1 part distilled water, and then you're going to add in your silicone. Let's see. And then, see, chat is everybody still there? Can everybody still hear me okay? Chat's just not really moving, so I want to make sure that I didn't cut out or something. Anyway, I talk about the color wheel usually when I go over the class too. This is not the colors we're going to be using today. Like I said, this was from an old class. Sounds good, Philip. Thanks. This is from another class, but this was the basic formula down to the ounce for just an 8x10 size canvas. And then you've got your supplies. So you've got, you know, your acrylic paint, not paint. Hi, Crystal. Acrylic paint, Floetrol, distilled water. You've got your silicone oil, mixing cups, mixing sticks / whisk, painter's tape, canvas, flat surface to dry paintings. That's the other thing, is when you dry these, you need your surface to be flat. If it's tilted in any way, especially if you have a lot of paint on top of your canvas, all of that paint is going to run right off. Also, if you can, preferably put it in a room where there's not a ton of airflow. You don't want to put it outside. The problem with putting it outside is that if you've got a lot of paint on top, because you will, because you're pouring a lot, and like I said, there's a lot of moisture, and so there's a pretty thick layer. There's a reason that it takes days to dry, because like for it to be completely cured, we're talking at least 5 days, depending on the size of painting and everything. So what you preferably would do, like for instance, I've got a cabinet drawer with these plastic drawers, and I put those in there. There's still airflow, but like there's, you know, no chance of cat hair or dust or whatever landing in the paint, because you like it to have a nice smooth surface and everything. So if you put it outside, what you're going to get is the top surface is going to dry really quickly. But underneath, that paint is still moving like a minuscule amount. So what you'll get is cracking on the top, because that top layer will have dried, but the bottom layer will still be shifting or moving. Because what your painting looks like when you initially pour it isn't necessarily what it's going to look like when it's done. I cannot tell you how many trial and errors I've had over the years. It probably took me a good year to finally solidify kind of what worked for me. You know what I mean? Okay, so like I said, flat surface to dry paintings, a scale to measure liquids, apron. You can see mine is very well loved. But I actually made this one because I wanted a super thick canvas apron, because the paint was soaking through the other aprons and getting on my clothes. Drop cloth, which is what we have here, and a tray to catch the paint. So for a tray to catch the paint, I haven't decided if I'm going to use mine or not, because I don't think I can fit it with the camera. But you can get just like a small tote or a painter's tray where you're rolling stuff. You're just trying to collect all the paint that's going to fall off. Now, I'm going to try and pour this in a way today to where it's not going to run off my desk, but the trays just aren't really feasible when I've got tripod legs kind of surrounding me. Hi, Kelly. So anyway, so a tray to catch paint would be good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare our canvas. Now, if you are doing a wood panel canvas, you want to get something like, hang tight, 1 second, I forgot to grab it. Hold on 1 second. Ooh. Okay, you want to get something like this. Now, people pronounce it differently, gesso, whatever it is. The wood's still going to absorb moisture, but the reason that you get this is to help seal in the wood, and so maybe to prevent it from absorbing too much. Now, most of the canvases you buy in the store are going to be pre-treated already. If you see how it's a little bit more brown here? This is the natural color of the canvas. The white on top is because it's already been treated. So the surface is already good to go on here. And like I said, most canvases you buy in store are already going to be good to go. If you make your own canvases, then you'll have to pre-treat them yourselves, but otherwise they are just fine. Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're gonna prep them in a way, normally this takes a little bit, so that's why if I'm not rushing it, I just wanna make sure I fit everyone, you know, everything in. Hi, Carol. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your painter's tape and you are going to put it on the back. The idea is you will be keeping the back of your canvas clean. Now, if it's just for at home, you know, it's not, why this tape's not sticking as well. I might need to get a new roll of tape. This one isn't very sticky. One second, let me grab a fresh roll of tape. If it's just for you and personal at home and you don't really care, then it's not that big of a deal. But when I do my paintings professionally, I need the back of my paintings to stay clean. So I always put down tape so that you can try and salvage the back of your paintings. Oh my goodness, I gotta be smarter than the plastic on this. Hang tight, 1 second. I was thinking that other roll was gonna be fine, but I think it's just a little not sticky. I'm not sure why. Okay. Painter's tape, yay! And you can just get this at Lowe's. Well, really anywhere that sells painting supplies, so. And I know that this fluid art is not everybody's cup of tea, but, you know, it's nice to mix things up every now and then. Okay, so you're gonna wanna make sure that you press it along the edge here because this is where the paint's gonna seep in. So you want to make sure that you're pressing it nice and tight and sealing that edge. Like I said too, we'll be back to the regular coloring on Wednesday, but today was just kind of a one-off, you know? Like I said, just mixing it up a little bit. Okay. There. See, if I were filming this to post this video, I would probably edit out this part, you know, make it quick, speed up the video. But that's the joy of live, right? You get to experience it live, how long it actually really takes to do all of this. Okay. All right, that should be good enough. So like I said, this protects the back of your canvas. Now, when you're handling it, you want to make sure that you handle it on the edges and not by the canvas, because that's when you're going to get your fingers on here. And you can see my fingers through here. I mean, this isn't super strong, especially for the Walmart ones, just because they're a little bit more flimsy versus something like this. It's much more tight. Like I'm pressing on the back and you can't see my fingers. Like you see the shadow, but you can't see the indentations nearly as much. And that's just because of the way that this one is made. But we're going to be using this one here. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to move this canvas over here. Now I'm going to be using the Play-Doh ones. Awesome, Carol. I'm going to be using the Play-Doh ones here. We're going to set them up because you want to set your canvas up on something here so that you can easily grab it, because if you've got it directly on your table, then you're getting your paint, because you also don't want to touch these sides as much. Let's see if I can raise this up just a little bit here. My cord is only so long, so we'll see how far I can get away with this. Anyway, you don't want to be handling your sides too much because this is going to be part of your painting, the way that it's going to kind of drape over. So we're going to shift this here. We're going to move this so that you can maybe see a bit better. Okay. There you go. All right, that'll be nice for another view. And we're going to move this painting down when we do the pour. This is clear right here because we are about to mix the paint, and I want you to be able to see that all, you know? All right, so we're going to move that canvas up there because our canvas is prepped now. So now what we need to do is to mix the paint. I'm actually going to take off my rings for this because my hands have a tendency to get a little messy with this. All right, so for today's video, I'm just using regular plastic cups, but like I said, there are loads of ways, repurposed Play-Doh cups, exactly, yes. There are loads of ways to be more economically friendly with all of these. Okay, so we're gonna get 3 of these medium-sized cups, okay. And we're gonna get 1 large cup here. because the colors that we are using today, we have our base color, which is our white. We're gonna do violet. We're going to do, oh my gosh, I can never pronounce this, but it's like phthalo-cyanidine green. Hey, it's a green. It's a blue green. It's pretty. And this says brown red, but it's essentially like a bronze. Okay, so we're going to do our white first. And we are also going to use our scale, because this is where it helps you get your formula. All right. So you grab your cup. Blue, green, blue, green, blue, green. Exactly. We're going to get our cup here. And like I said, on here, we have our formula. So this is going to be the formula we're going to be following. So we're going to get 1.35 ounces of paint, 2.70 ounces of Floetrol, and 1.35 ounces of water. I forgot to show you. This is the Floetrol. This is our blending medium. Here. It's a big old jug. Kind of hard to fit in here. But this is what I get. And I get this at Lowe's. Now, there are other fancier blending mediums that can work. This is what I get for me because it is much more budget friendly. Yeah, cyan. Well, it's pH. Here. We'll zoom in. PHTHALOCYANINE. How the heck are you supposed to pronounce that? I have no idea. If anybody knows, feel free to tell me. But basically what it is you're mixing it with the paint to thin out the paint without it losing its viscosity. Because if you were to take the paint, turquoise, green, it says green. Puce, yes. Oh, Philip, I should have done puce. If you were to take the paint and just mix it with a bunch of water, you're gonna lose the adhesion of the paint. You're gonna lose the viscosity of it. It's gonna break up. It's not gonna get you what you want. So you need a blending medium to go with it. Okay. So we're gonna follow this recipe here, and we are going to do 1.35 ounces of paint. Now I try to get this as close as possible, but I'm not perfect. Sometimes it doesn't. Your scale is dirty. My scale is. This is not dirty. This is well loved. So when you use your scale, obviously it's going to say 0, but this cup weighs a little bit of something. So you can see it's 0.42 ounces. So once you get your cup on there, hi Laura, we're just getting started. We went over a few of the supplies and prepping the canvas, but we are just getting started with the paint. So you're gonna put, no worries Laura, you're good. You're gonna put your cup on your scale and you're gonna zero it out because you want this to be as accurate as possible. Now, if you go a little bit over, it's not, you're pretty close. Thanks. Anyway, you're lost my train of thought. Anyway, you're gonna add your paint. If you go over, you know, like a couple of points or whatever, it's not the end of the world. Hi, CV. Well, I'm so glad. Okay, so for our white, we are just going to be using the white acrylic Fine Touch brand, which is what you can find at Hobby Lobby. Woo, that's been upside down. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. See, it's gone to sleep now. There you go. All right, it's woken up. All right, so we are at 0.17, and we are going to 1.35. So I just do it in little bits because it's really easy to go past really fast. 1.16, 2.6. See, and also sometimes kind of like hit it down so I can get a little bit more accurate reading. 3.4. Perfect. So like I said, it's not 3.5, but if I were to go again, I'd end up at like 3.8 or something like that. So I try to keep it as accurate as possible. Okay, we're going to measure out all of our paint first. Then we're going to go through and do all the Floetrol. So we're going to do it all in a kind of a row here. So that is our white paint. Okay, so now we're going to zero this out again, and we are going to do our green, our blue green, which we are going to go ahead and do 0.55 ounces of the green here. The green that I can't pronounce. Okay, so it's 28, 31. Excuse me. A rude paint. Okay. Oh, it's 5.2, 5.6. Yeah, 5.9. All right, we went a little bit over. Like I said, if we go a little bit over, it's not the end of the world because really like 0.04 of an ounce isn't that much. The goal is just to try and stay as close as possible so that your formula is consistent and you get consistent results. All right, next we're going to go ahead and use Violet. This is a Master's Touch brand, which is like a Fine Touch. Again, it's another Hobby Lobby brand. So it's nice because if you keep an eye on the sales, Hobby Lobby has a lot of sales on paint. You can also, like, if you're just getting a single, like, larger tube, like this one, like this is $6.99, and you get, how many ounces is it? 8.5 fluid ounces. And so you use a 40% off coupon, and I mean, well, I can't math, but you know, it's less than the $6.99. So it's pretty good deals. All right, so we're gonna go 0.55 with this one too. Now if you go on YouTube, you're gonna find all kinds of formulas. People have different recipes, what works for them. This is just what I have found works for me with the supplies that I have available for my budget and for my area. So you may find something that works better for you. But I hate that they put up Christmas decorations in July. Yeah, that is a bit much. July's a little rough. I mean, that's like 6 months beforehand. Okay, it's still zeroed out because all those cups were the same size. All right, so now we're going to do 0.55 of the bronze as well. But yeah, so there are loads of different formulas, and I had to try a lot of different stuff, and this is the formula that gave me the most consistent results. But when you start getting with different brands of paint or different brands of blending medium, then your formula may need to change. But for these particular things, this is what works. All right, so we've got all of our paint mix. We're going to move these off the table, get these out of the way. Okay. Then, just to make it easy, because I cannot do the large jug in the camera, I'm going to take this cup here, shake up the Floetrol. Make sure the lid's nice and tight before you do that. Like I said, you can get this at Home Depot or Lowe's, and I mean, you get an entire gallon for less than 15 bucks. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pour this in here. I've also seen recipes where people have used Elmer's glue. You know, you can get pretty large things at Elmer's glue. I haven't been able to make that one work for me, but I have seen it done. So if you're curious about other recipes, I mean, YouTube is just filled with them. All right, so now what we're gonna do, we've got our paint. We're gonna zero this out again because we know now that we wanna do 2.70 of Floetrol. And the reason of this is like I said, the base formula, because you'll adjust this based on how big your canvas is. So the base formula is 1 part acrylic paint, 2 parts blending medium, and 1 part distilled water. And it's distilled water too because I read it has to do with like the minerals in the water, so it reacts better with the paint and everything. Like I said, this is painting, yes, but a big part of this is chemistry and how you can put all of these together to make them work in a cohesive kind of way. All right, so we've zeroed it out for the paint, and now we're going to add 2.70 of the blending medium, which is the Floetrol. Okay, and this one is when it can go really fast just because this flows so much faster than paint. So unless you're in a hurry, feel free to take your time and just kind of let it drizzle in to get it as close to the number that you want. Let's see, can you guys see that number? We're going to move that a little bit and shift that light. There we go. Okay, so we're up at 2.29. We're going to go to 2.7. Almost there. There we go. 2.75. Pretty close. All right, so now we're going to move that aside. And we're going to zero this out again. And for these smaller color paint cups, we are going to be doing 1.1 ounces of Floetrol, okay? And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. And like I said, I teach this class in real life, but the perks about coming to do this in the actual class is that all the supplies, we provide all of them for you. And that's close enough. And not to mention it's, you know, not one-on-one, but I'm there. You can ask questions, you know, as we go along. And because the part where you flip the canvas, that can be a little nerve-wracking. Okay, so going for 1.1. Boop, boop, boop. I went over a little bit more, so I'm actually going to take this and I'm going to carefully because we haven't mixed it yet, so it's still clean Floetrol. I'm going to take just a little bit and put that back. 1.19, that's close enough. Grab a paper towel here. Like I said, it can be real easy to be pretty non-economic and wasteful when you're doing this, so there are definitely ways to make sure that you are not harming the planet for this. Hi, Dory. Yes, I am feeling so much better, and we're doing something a little bit different, a little bit fun, kind of just a one-off kind of activity here to experience. Let's see, what are we at? 1.05. 1.12, close enough. All right, so now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna pour this Floetrol back in the jug here because knowing me, I will do something and I will knock it over. I don't trust myself. So we are done with the Floetrol, so we are gonna put this back in. Okay. Yeah, it can also be very messy. It's gonna be a very messy artistic endeavor. All right, so before we add the water or the silicone or anything else, what we want to do now is we want to mix up our colors because we don't want to add the water until before we've mixed it with the Floetrol, because then the whole idea is that you are using, the paint and the Floetrol are adhering together, and if you add the water before they're mixed and have the opportunity to essentially connect, you're going to it's not going to be as smooth. It's basically, it will ruin the paint mixture that you're trying to do. So what you want to make sure to do, especially when you're mixing white with Floetrol, it's hard to see when it's mixed in completely. So use your best judgment. Make sure you're scraping your mixer along the bottom of your cup, the sides. I mean, you're letting in a lot of air here, but that's okay. It's going to create, the air is going to create more bubbles. If you don't like as much air, what you can do is you can mix up your paint and let it sit for 24 hours or so. Make sure it's sealed and everything so it doesn't dry up. But that is another way to do it. Okay, that one's pretty good. So now what we're going to do is, I have this cup of just regular sink water. I'm going to shake that off. And this is a way, like I said, if you don't have the little whisks, you can mix with like the popsicle sticks, but the whisks are a great way to make less waste when you are doing this. All right, so that's all mixed up. I mean, it's just like you're rinsing a paintbrush, All right, now we're gonna mix up our green. And yes, the color does become slightly lighter when you mix it with the Floetrol, but it's not much. So I'm just trying to make sure you can see here. Let's see, make sure I can get this light over here. There you go. I don't know if you can see it a little bit better there. There we go. So, and the nice thing about the clear cups though is that you can see on the bottom when you've got extra. The sticks probably get down in those crevices a little bit more, but when we add water to it, it'll mix up the rest. Hi, Abby. We're just doing something kind of different and fun this morning. I promise we'll go back to coloring. All right, so I'm gonna tap that on the sides here, tap that off, and then we're gonna go ahead and give that a rinse. Okay. All right, so that's our green. I might need to rinse that one a little bit more. There we go. Let's see, how are we doing on time? 9:34. Okay. See, when I teach my classes and I've got more than like 20 people there, I have to get there multiple hours like beforehand because I have to measure out all the paint. I let them mix it all, but I have to measure it out, and it takes just a little while. Okay. Okay, we're gonna rinse that purple. Making really pretty water. Okay. And we're gonna grab our bronze. Gonna get that. Now, this is metallic. Not all metallics are the same. In fact, there are some metallics that just, I had like silver for some reason. I struggle with silver. But if you like a little bit of shine on your paintings, there is an iridescent medium made by, I believe, the Basics brand. And I think I've got it buried right now. Anyway, you can add a little bit of sparkle to it. I have also tested with adding glitter, and you can do that as well. In fact, because the painting class I'm teaching this weekend is a holiday class, we're doing like silver and gold and like forest green, and then I've got this really fine glitter that they can sprinkle on top if they want to, because it's, you know, holiday themed. And what's the holidays without glitter? Okay, so you can see that one there. So I tested the other day about letting the paint sit for 24 hours, and they all were great except for this bronze metallic. It's separated from the water, and I think it's because of what they put in there to make it metallic was heavier, and it just didn't. Anyway, the point is it separated, and I was like, oh, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and rinse that. We're gonna set that aside. Okay, so now we have got all of the Floetrol mixed up with the paint, so we're gonna pull out our scale again. Hang on, chat, 1 second. Gonna check something real quick. Okay, so now we're gonna pull out our scale again, and this is where we're gonna add the water. Okay, so I'm gonna grab another cup here, and like I said, I just have, I think I even got this at Walmart, just great value distilled water, nothing fancy. Okay, and I'm gonna add this here so it'll make it easier pouring when I pour, rather than the giant jug. It's easier to pour something small than it is something big, and then you don't over pour. All right, so now this is the 1 part water. So we're gonna go ahead. Stream brought to you by Walmart. I know, right? Total coincidence. I don't even shop at Walmart that often. I'm a Target girl. I can't help it. Who am I kidding? I'm a Hobby Lobby girl. Yeah, Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby has my heart. I always said that if I had to go get a part-time job, I'd go work at Hobby Lobby because I know the store like the back of my hand. I spend way too much time there than any one person should. Okay, so now we're going to do our 1 part water. So for the white, because it's a little bit different amount than the colors, all moms are Target girls. You're not wrong. 1.35 ounces of water. Okay, hang on 1 second. Okay, so 1.35. We want to go slow because this is even thinner than the Floetrol. I had a little kind of, you know, like ketchup bottle. Like I had a dispenser for that, but it just kept leaking everywhere. I need to get a new one. Okay, so that's 1.19. 1.34. Pretty good. All right, now we're going to grab our bronze, and we need to do 0.55 of water. So we're going to zero that out. Like I said, this part is what takes the longest. The whole science mixing part of it. This is what you spend most of your time doing, because once you get it on the canvas, that's the quick and easy part. Well, I won't say easy. That's the quick part. All right, that's bronze. 0.55 of the green as well. There we go, 0.56. Okay, zero down. 0.56. Perfect. Okay, we are done with this scale now. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and mix up our colors again with the water. We're gonna start with the white, actually, because that was the first one we did. Now, when you're mixing these with sticks, the let me go back. The consistency that you're looking for with this, it's like, it's not yogurt. And I'm going to grab a stick here just to show you, because odds are most of you would probably end up mixing with sticks just because it's the most easy at hand. All right, so for when you're using the big cups, I would use the large stick. Okay, so you're mixing it up, and the consistency that you're feeling for is it's not yogurt. Have any of you ever, I don't know, I've got kids, so this is like, they have those Danimals yogurt drinks. And it's kind of like that. It's like kind of thick. Think like heavy cream, but a little bit thicker. And then one of the ways you can tell that you have enough, so we're gonna get this all mixed. We're gonna stand this in the middle here. And it lingers for just a second. I don't know if you can see that. And obviously it'll linger more the more full your cup is, but the stick lingers for just a second. And that tells you that it's thick enough. So it'll be the same thing with like if you use a smaller stick. Like a halfway melted milkshake? Yes. Yes, that's, yeah, I would say yes on that. Okay, I can't use the stick for this. I've been using the whisk for it, but yeah, it'll linger in the cup for just a moment, and that tells you that it's pretty well mixed. But the other reason that you want to make sure that it's nice and mixed too is because you don't want, you want to avoid lumps in your paint if you can, because those lumps are not going to float off your canvas like the other paint is going to. And when it dries, you will get a non-smooth surface. So just something to keep in mind. Hi, Leslie. Buttermilk, a little thicker than buttermilk, a little bit thicker than buttermilk. Like, yeah, like it pours slowly. It's not as thick as a milkshake, but yeah, I think like what Laura said, like a halfway melted milkshake. Just enough so there's a little bit of resistance, but it doesn't pour as thinly as milk. You know what I mean? But so you want to make sure that you've mixed it pretty well. All right, so we're gonna rinse off here. See, I put that stick in there. It seemed like a good place for it. Okay, and then I dried that off. Now we're gonna go ahead and mix up our bronze. And it's funny too, when you start mixing it with other fluids, it's like the metallic properties of this come out even more. So I use metallic paints in my paintings as often as I can. Like, I love it so much. Just adds a little bit of shine. I will say though, like, I have not had much success with silver. Like, silver, just when it dries, it's not nearly as, the light doesn't catch it nearly as much as like the gold or the bronze does. Like, it just dries kind of dull. And like I said, I've struggled with it mixing with all of the, you know, mixing it with the Floetrol and all of that. Like, it breaks up. Like, yeah, silver and I have a complicated relationship. All right, I'm gonna rinse that off. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and do our green. See, and it seems so thin at first, but once you start pulling up the paint from the bottom of the cup, then it really starts to thicken up. Like I said, you know, and it's not perfect. Like, I tend to still get lumps in mine, but I do my best to try and avoid the lumps at all costs. All right, so that is our paint mixed. Okay, I'm gonna take out this stick here. All right, so what we have now, oh, I'm gonna pour this water back in too. Hang on one second. See if I can do this without spilling it, you think? Haha, got it all in. Woot. All right. Okay, so we've got our 4 colors now. Okay. Now, the white is our base color. That is what's going to go in the bottom of the cup. Now, you don't necessarily have to have white as your base color, but to get a good rise in your paint, you always want to choose some sort of base color, because the way that it's going to work is the only colors that are going to get the silicone. Awesome, Leslie. The only colors that are going to get the silicone are going to be these colors here. All right. So basically what it's going to do is you're going to be layering the paint in your cup, and then the silicone, which is what we're going to put in, it's an oil, is going to be working its way up, and that is what's going to help to create the cells. Now, if you were to do it without, you would still get some sort of cells from all of the air bubbles in here, but the silicone is when you really get those bigger ones. One of the other things that you can do, and it works better if you're using a ceramic cup or so, if you are wanting to eliminate some of your air bubbles, one of the things you can do, and again, be very careful if you're doing it with plastic cups because fire and plastic tends to melt. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in so you can see here. All right, you see how many, see if it'll focus. It's pretty white. I don't know if it'll say that it has anything to focus on. Okay, you can. Okay, so you see how many bubbles I've got in here? I've got a lot of bubbles. And that's partially also because I use the whisk. I put a lot, I mean, think about it when you whisk egg whites. I put a lot of air into it, okay? So this is like a creme brulee torch. It was super, you can see it in the little camera there. It made me super nervous when I used it. Okay, so it's got a little flame here. If you tilt it a little bit, and this is just if you want to get rid of some of the air bubbles here, okay? Let's see if I can, we're gonna zoom out a little bit. Otherwise I'm gonna set my hand on fire. Okay, a little bit of this, and you just take it and you just pop it over the top for a split second. Now we can zoom in and you can see there's not nearly as many bubbles. What that did is that popped it, but you can also, the cup got warm. You do it for a split second. I should put a disclaimer on here that please don't use a torch and set yourself on fire because I don't want to be sued. Also, I don't want anybody to get caught on fire. You know, that would be bad. Okay, so I'm going to show you another way we're going to use the torch later too. Let's zoom back out here. All right, so we've got our 4 colors here. Now we're going to take our silicone and we are going to add, and you can experiment with how many not suitable for children. Yes. Ooh, there's fire in this video. Yes. Take that, FTC. So we're going to put 2 to 3. You can experiment with how many drops you want to put in. You know, there's different ways it'll create, you know, more cells or less cells. It's just fun to experiment. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put in 2 drops of silicone. And so what you want to make sure is you're not squeezing the bottle because then you get a stream and you have no way to measure. It's basically drops are a good way to measure because they're all about the same size. But if you just squeeze a stream in each one, next time you may not be able to get the same results because you're like, dang, how much silicone did I use? So I go by drops so that you can measure the amount of drops that you use. If you happen to drop a little extra, it's okay. Just maybe try and keep a mental note of how much you think you put in there so that you can recreate it later. Okay. And like I said, this is just treadmill belt lubricant. I got this on Amazon. I don't have a link up for it yet. I honestly just ran out of time and didn't do it. So I'm going to adjust the links on the description a little bit later. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and drop in our silicone, not in our base color, just in our 3 colors here, because we need something working against each other so that the silicone can make it up to the surface. Okay. So this one is just a twist top, okay? So we're just going to do 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And 1 and 2. Okay, now I've read on a few different recipes that some people like to mix the silicone in with the cups. But for me, the best results I've had is where I don't mix this paint anymore. What's going to happen for mixing now is when we layer it in the cup, okay? This is amazing. Thank you so much. Can't wait to try it. Oh, it's so much fun, Laura. And like I said, I have a tentative, like, I can't talk today, supply list in the description, but I'm going to make it a bit more detailed later. Like I said, I just sort of ran out of time because I am organized like that. Okay, so you have a couple different cup sizes for when you decide how you're going to fill your paint. Okay, now we have an 8 by 10. It's really not that big, and because honestly, I don't want to make that big of a mess, I'm actually going to use the medium cup. Most of my classes, I use a large cup. I'll check back in about a week when I want to try it. That'll be perfect. In most of my classes, I just use the big one, but I think for today, well, do I want to do a big one? I'm trying to decide now. No, you know, we'll just use the big one. I want it to be as accurate as possible. Okay, now, before you pour your paint in your cup, there are a couple things to keep in mind. One of those things is gravity. And I know that sounds silly, but gravity comes into effect here. And this is because you're going to layer these. Go big or go home. There you go. You're going to layer these. But the height at which you pour these and the speed is going to affect how much it mixes. And I'm going to show you an example here. 1 second. Hold up. All right, so these are some 8 by 10 paintings from classes that I have taught previously. Okay, and in one of these, I poured my paint into the cup at a pretty high height. Okay, so like this one was a red and blue and yellow, because I always do the same colors for everybody, and it's great because everybody can see, you know, the reaction. This was a blue and gold one, but this one, we did actually kind of similar colors to what we're doing today. And actually you can see there's some, because I was teaching and I was distracted, it wasn't as well as I would have liked, but there's some lumps in the paint here. But this paint is very mixed, and that's because I poured my paint at a high height, which means that it mixed more. So imagine just gravity pulling down on the paint and mixing more. And yet if you pour it closer to the cup and slower, it may not mix nearly as much. That being said, once you choose your height and rate that you want to pour it at, you want to keep that pretty consistent. Because like I said, you can also like layer it to where, you know, you pour all the colors in, or you do it. This stage at which you're putting your paint in your cup is the only stage in which you are going to have even a semblance of control over everything. This particular activity is a great activity for practicing in letting go. Because once you get this paint in this cup and you flip it upside down, you don't have a ton of control over what that paint is going to do. Yeah, you're going to tilt it and, you know, you're going to kind of put it where you want. But also, even after you're done tilting it, it's still moving. And you have very little control of it. So it's a good lesson in letting go of control and just letting things fall where they may, essentially. But so there are a few different ways you can do it. We'll put the white in first, and then you can, you know, layer a little bit, or maybe you can put a little green on one side or a little purple on one side. When you're doing them all the same colors and you experiment with pouring different kinds of cups, then that's when you can really see it. And it's great because since I teach the class and I've got upwards of 20 students, everybody's trying something different. And it's great because everybody has the exact same mounts, the exact same colors, and they never end up the same. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're not pouring all of this white in. We're actually going to save some of this because we're going to put it on the canvas to help the paint float. But we'll go over that here in just a minute. So we're going to take some of this white. And again, remember, this doesn't have silicone in it. Okay? Excuse my shakiness. I didn't eat probably as well as I should have today. All right, so we've poured about a third of the white in here. Because remember, we're only coloring, or we're only not coloring. You see where my brain's at. We're only covering an 8x10 surface, and you're about to add all of these other colors in here. All right, so you haven't stirred it. You've got the silicone in, all right? So we're going to pour in our green. And you can see that the cells are starting. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. You can see the cells are already starting to form because the silicone is working its way to the surface. And in fact, there are like whole Instagram accounts like dedicated just to pictures of cup pictures. You know, I'm zooming in close now so you can see, because you can kind of see here. I'll tilt this up here a little bit and you can kind of see me still pouring up here, but you can see the result in the cup. All right, so now we're going to add our purple. Okay. You can see how it's reacting with each other. It is alive, right? and I always think it's just like, this is where it looks cool until it all goes wrong. You know, like if only I could get, you know, my canvas to look the way that my cup does. Okay, now we're going to add in our bronze. And at this point also, you could layer in a little bit of white. But you see how it's just kind of moving and doing its own thing. So we're going to add in a little bit of white here. Okay. Now we can go back in the same order if we want. And you don't necessarily have to use all of the paint because I think it would cover most of it. All right, so that's a little bit of the green. We're going to add some purple over here. Okay. You can see how that's reacting. I love this part. And we're going to add some more bronze there. And this is going to be plenty for an 8x10. In fact, this probably is going to spill over quite a bit. So we are going to shift this now. Yeah, I know, right? It looks great in the cup. The question is, will it look just as great on the canvas? Okay, I'm going to grab something real quick because I am concerned about this flowing over my desk. And I don't want it to make a mess. So give me one moment. I'm going to grab a little tray here. Now, what I have here is a paint tray, like when you are rolling out paint at home. The only slight issue with this is it may not give you the total flat surface, but just for the initial catching of the paint, it can, I'm gonna knock that over. It can be pretty useful. So we're gonna put that in our paint cup there for a second, okay? So like I said, you wanna make sure that you have cups up on yours. I reused my kids' Play-Doh cups, just because, like I said, they go through Play-Doh like it's nobody's business. And it's a great way to kind of help cut down on waste a little bit, okay? So let's see, are we zoomed out far enough? All right, so here is our moment of truth, okay? So we're gonna take our cup here. You can see it's starting to mix a little bit here, okay? This is the part that everybody gets nervous about. So you can see in the little, can everybody see in the little camera there? Okay, I've got my cup underneath, I'm holding tight. I've got my hand on top, I know, right? I got my hand on top of the canvas. You're holding it to the cup, okay? And then you're going to flip. The suction keeps the cup there. All right? Now I've seen different things where, I know, woo, where they might have like a, and now the phone rings, I know, right? They might have a pin like in the top and they'll pull it out at this point and that will drop air into it and it makes the paint fall even more. But we're not gonna get too fancy. Now, before I pull, there's a couple different things you can do. You can pull your cup straight up. You can tilt it to the right. Other ways is you can like pour it on the canvas. For us today, I'm gonna tilt it to the right because I really want you to be able to see what's going on here, okay? All right, so everybody ready? Moment of truth. Hopefully the camera's a little bit in focus at least. All right, here we go. Ooh, yeah, really glad I did that. But you can see how it's tilted here. And ooh, I'm gonna try and salvage this before this all runs off. Okay, so normally, excuse the shakiness here. You see how all these white dots are popping up? This is where you could take your torch and you run it over the top and you're making more of these white dots pop up. Now you do this before you tilt because now when you tilt, those white dots are going to stretch. So let's get this in focus here. All right, so, but when you tilt, things to take into mind, the more you stretch, the less your cells are going to lose, you're going to stretch them out essentially. But you also want to cover the entire canvas. So you just very carefully and slowly tilt to cover. Like I said, what it looks like initially may not be what it looks like in the end. Your hands will get messy, by the way. It's going to happen. All right, we're going to tilt back this way. And that silicone is still going to continue to come to the surface as you go along. Okay, now for me, I don't want to lose all of this white because the white is my contrast, you know? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take what was left over in the cup. Excuse my shakiness, I'm just having a moment today. And we can pour a little bit more on these corners. Okay. It's not perfect. Like normally I'd be spending a lot more time on it, but you can see how much these little white specks like are popping up when you do it. Okay. So let's see, this is a little bit slanted and that's why it's flowing that way. So I am going to, paper towels. Once it starts going, but you can see how quickly it can slide off. So I'm gonna very carefully, yeah, this is probably gonna slide. Okay, well, we're just gonna, you can see there's so much paint on it, it slides right off. This is definitely tilted. Tilted more than I anticipated. Hang tight. 1 second. Here's what we're gonna do before we just lose all of this. We're gonna take this paper towel and we are going to tuck it up under. There we go. Just raise this just a tiny bit and I'll resituate this a little bit later. But you can see that if it's not level, how quickly it can, you can lose it, you know? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. the main amount of this has gone off, and my desk is much more level than this paint tray is. And I really don't want to lose this. So, trying to be careful here. Bear with me, guys. 1 second. Oh my gosh, that's why I chose different heights for these stupid cups. Oh. Well, I'm having a moment, aren't I? All right, we're going to grab some of these other cups here. That's why. I didn't realize that the Play-Doh cups were different heights. Okay, bear with me, guys. 1 second. Oh, yes, a level surface is so... Yeah, that's when I just don't answer the phone. Yeah, a level surface is so super important. How long does it take to dry? It takes at least if you got more airflow, which you don't want a ton, it takes at least 3 to 4 days. Whew, there we go. Okay, well, that ended up a little bit more sloppy than I intended, but that was my own fault, and that's because I thought that the cups were all the same size, but they were not. So I'm gonna shift this back into view here so you can see it. It is darn you Play-Doh cups. I had a bunch of them in there, but I forget that some of them are different heights. I was just like, oh, all the yellow ones are the same. We'll be good. Lesson learned there, right? Okay, so we're gonna very carefully shift this over here because we're not quite done yet. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, there we go. You know, see, and so the key, what I look for when I'm doing this, now this ended up stretching way more than I anticipated, but you can see how many cells are coming up. Now you can also take your torch again afterwards and bring a bit more of those little white ones. Now, once it's like this, you don't want to torch it too much because what you're doing is you're drying that surface and you can get kind of the crazing on it. And like I said, normally I would not have stretched the cells this much, but, well, you saw I had the little kerfuffle there. You can also take afterwards, you can take a little paintbrush, and you see we've got some spots that didn't get covered. And at this point, I certainly don't want to tilt it anymore. You can take a paintbrush and just kind of touch up some of these edges here. And I'll work on that a little bit later here, but go. Just so that it's covered. When you do a pour like this, like I have my ones where I kind of, you know, like blow them around, and some of that negative space is actually kind of good. But when you do a pour like this, you kind of want all of your edges covered, if that makes sense. A little bit, yeah. So one of the things about me is that I love texture. I absolutely love something where you look at it and you just want to touch it. You know what I mean? So I've shown a few of you when I showed you my paintings that I have coming up for the art show. And what I do, I'll show you. I always make it sound like I'm struggling, and it's because like there's a small space between where my extra light is and where anyway, it's just it's silly. Anyway, okay, so once this is dry, say I have a painting that got a little muddied, or like Crystal Rock, yeah, exactly. Let's see, did I miss any questions? Yeah, how long it takes so I so yeah, level surface, especially, and when you're driving. Isn't there still a giant glob of paint on there? I don't think so. It came out pretty smooth. Yes, a cookie sheet would work perfectly. Yes, and that's a great thing to use at home. Yes, a cookie sheet would be absolutely perfect. Okay, so I have these craft paints that I like to use. After this is all dry, if for some reason, this is making my tryptophobia come out. If for some reason your painting has become too muddied and you've lost the contrast in your painting, because that's what I consider, like I said, the cells are a little too stretched for my liking. You can see here I need to touch up the side. But if I've lost the contrast, what I'll do is I like to take in with that paint and create textured dots on my paintings, because then it just adds a whole other element to it, because now it's just like, oh man, I want to touch that, you know what I mean? But like I said, it takes a while for it to dry. It takes, you know, I usually leave mine for a good solid week before I try and do anything with it. Let's get this in focus here. So here, what time is it? 10:04. We still got some time. And I've got extra paint. I am going to move this painting over, and we are going to grab that little 6x6 that I have, and I'm going to show you how I do the kind of the blowing technique on it. So this is going to be a little bit different than your standard pour. So bear with me. I'm going to very carefully move this over here. Okay. Remind me not to do this when I have such shaky hands. And this is also why the tape on the bottom is important, because you see here how there's so much paint. Otherwise your canvas would stick to that. But now, since we have tape, we're going to be able to remove it easily because we can just remove the tape. Okay, I need to go grab my drawer. Give me 1 second, chat. I usually don't do this sitting either. Like, I'm usually standing and have like free space to do this all. Oh, wow, you can see all of that side now that I've turned it. You can see in the camera there how empty it is. Well, we're just gonna touch this up. See, the other thing is too, you see how it's opening up again? That's because of the silicone, and that's because I let it run over that side too much. So what I would do then is, after it would dry, then I would go back over after we've cleaned the silicone, which we'll talk about cleaning the silicone here in a little bit, and then I would touch it up after the silicone is off the canvas, because it is essentially an oil that is making it so it can't quite adhere. It doesn't have a problem on top. But you can see too how it's changed. We're getting quite a few more little tiny cells right here where some of that green is coming up through the bottom. So let me grab my drying drawer real quick, and we're gonna shift that over. And like I said, I have these 5 drawers that I stick these in, and I've got these little metal trays. Let's see, how are we gonna, I think I gotta move this lighter. Okay, I'm gonna move the tripod just 1 second, guys. Here, bear with me. All right, we're gonna very carefully shift this over into the drying drawer here. Okay, there we go. All right, we're gonna leave that right there. Let it do its thing here in case we need to use it again. And we've got another hour still and a little canvas. So we are going to use up our extra paint here. I swear I see dog faces. That's hilarious. Okay, let's see. We're gonna move this on here. We'll grab a fresh cup here because I'm not using those Play-Doh cups because I was not paying enough attention. The wrong side. And you can see now why you need a drop cloth for your surface, right? All right, make sure my hands are essentially dry. Like, they look a mess, and this is why sometimes like I look like I've got paint under my nails, and it's because I do, because this is actually pretty clean considering I haven't washed my hands. Like, this is pretty good. All right, so we're gonna grab, this is our little gallery wrap canvas here. Okay, we are going to grab our tape, and I have it down here just because the desk is a mess, so give me 1 second. I'm gonna tape this on here. So when I talked about cleaning, there are a few different ways. After your painting is completely dry, there are a few different ways to clean it. I have read a few different, and I've tried both. One of the more mild ways that you can do it so that you don't potentially damage the painting is you can use cornstarch. Once you're painting, and I mean completely dry, I mean completely cured, everything, don't rush it, because if there's a single wet spot in there, you could ruin the entire painting. But once it's completely dry, I go ahead and I put a sprinkling of cornstarch all over the painting. And then I take a paintbrush, like a slightly larger one, and I kind of rub that cornstarch into the painting, and into all, like, because sometimes if the oil comes to the surface, sometimes you'll get a little dip in the painting where the silicone was. And so I just make sure I get the paintbrush into all of that. And then I use a paper towel and I wipe all of it away. And then, you know, when I'm done, I sweep it up and everything. That being said, I have another artist friend who does the same kind of stuff as me. And she actually cleans her paintings with Windex. Now, I don't use traditional, you know, like the blue Windex or whatever. I use the think it's like Myers brand or something. Anyway, it's a bit more of like a natural window cleaner. And I tested it on my paintings. You know, always test it beforehand. Maybe test it on a painting you didn't really like, or one that didn't turn out, or whatever. But always test it. But I would spray a little bit of Windex on the paper towel, and then I wipe the painting down that way. Now, when you do it, when it's all done, it makes it slightly tacky, but you let it dry. And then what you do is you use, actually right here. And this is what you're also going to spray it on when your paintings are all done. It is a UV protectant. I use this. It's Krylon Crystal Clear. You're going to want to take this outside. This stuff smells to high heaven. It's stronger than like paint fumes. Like it stinks. But you'll take it outside and you'll spray it over there, and then you'll get that nice kind of silky smooth finish over the top. Okay, so this one took a little bit longer because on these gallery wrap canvases, they are thicker, and there's this piece of wood here. So I usually do 2 layers of paint or of tape here to try and cover it. Okay. So this is the other technique that I've kind of started doing and I really enjoy. So I'm going to share that with you. We're going to move these in because it is a smaller canvas. I usually do this on larger sizes, but we're going to make this work for this size. Oh, I suppose I could move this back how it was. All right, let's move this up a little bit because you guys are going to want to see this whole thing. There you go. Does anybody have any questions or anything? I mean, I'm just kind of rolling with it here and I keep going. But if you have any questions, please feel free to tell me. Okay, so for this technique, when you mix up your paint, you don't necessarily need to add silicone in it because the cells are not the focus of what I do for here. So what I just did is what I teach in my classes. And again, I don't usually have the flop of uneven Play-Doh containers. That was my mistake. That was me not paying close enough attention. All right, so I'm going to shift my chair here because I generally stand for this one. I may or may not get my head in the camera. If I do, I apologize. Okay, so you're not going to be adding stuff to a cup like we did before. So for my technique, what I like to do, okay, so we're going to take this white. And again, this doesn't have any silicone in it or anything. All right, and we're going to pour this white on top. Okay, we're going to go slowly here because we don't want to overflow it too much. We're going to grab one of our large sticks. Okay. And we're just going to kind of, you could tilt it also, but I feel like I have a little bit more control when I spread it myself with the sticks. One of the reasons that you want the white on here is because we're about to do drops of paint, and the white is going to help the other colorful paint to flow. But also, when these dry, you will be able to see the difference between the white canvas and the white paint. It is not all the same by any means. So you want to make sure that you have a good solid layer of white underneath you to help with the flow of the paint, but also so that you don't have what looks like almost bald spots on your paint. Now, you don't have to have a solid layer over the sides. I like to make sure that my corners are covered because sometimes you get a little bit of fraying canvas. But for this particular technique that I do, the kind of drippiness over the side is actually exactly what I want. I don't expect this to be solidly covered, if you understand what I mean. Like, it's a little bit different. Now, some girls that I've seen do this, they have an air compressor, which makes it just work even more. I am not that fancy. You know what I've got? Although I don't use them often, so save the turtles, but I use a straw. You could use a plastic straw, a metal straw, anything work. This is just what I have. This is what I use. Economists, please don't hate me. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We have a little bit of this paint left over. It's not much. This would not be enough to do a pour, but for my particular technique, it is going to be enough. Okay, so we're going to very slowly, because all we want is just little drops. Okay, we're going to put a little bit there. In kind of the shape and design that I want this to be. Put a little bit there. Put here. I've used like eyedroppers before, and that tends to work with this also. Okay, so we've got some green here. We're going to use a little bit of our violet. Okay, violet, 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 a little bit of violet in this corner. Okay. And we're gonna use, and this is what I do when I'm not, if I'm arting and I'm, I just realized this camera is not pointing at what we're doing here. If I'm doing artwork and I'm not coloring, this is what I'm doing. This is the other side of my artwork that I do. Let's do this. There, you can see all my messy stuff in the background. Okay. And you can see that it's kind of like floating in it because there is so much white on the canvas, but that's exactly what you want. Because we're about to manipulate this here. Bronze there. Does anybody have any questions, by the way? I mean, feel free to pipe up if you do. Like I said, I know this is not our normal thing, but sometimes it's fun to just kind of branch out. Not with everybody up in arms about everything that's going on with YouTube. It's kind of nice to just mix it up and not worry about things. You know what I mean? Okay, now this is kind of spreading because we have the silicone in this. Normally I don't even use silicone when I'm doing this kind of painting, but I'm just using what we have left over because I also hate wasting the paint. You know what I mean? All right, so now what we're gonna do, so you can see the bronze has even come off a little bit on that corner. So we're gonna add just a tad more. And I don't worry too much about catching paint because as you can see, not a ton is falling off the side. Need a large art room. Oh my gosh, I would love a giant art room. That is the hope. One day, you know, we'll get a big place. I'll have my own studio. It'll be great. Okay, so I'm gonna use my straw now and I'm going to blow and we'll see what happens. See, I usually go around the other side here, so bear with me. And this is going to be a little bit different angle just because normally I'm not working with a camera. All right, I'm going to move this other light here because I really want to get to the other side. Okay, so and you get kind of this cool webbing too. You blow carefully because obviously you don't need to want to spit all over your painting. That's gross. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this, the more you blow it, the more your paint is going to mix and the more it's going to muddy and the more likelihood you have of you losing the contrast in your painting. That's what I like in mine. Right now we've got a good high contrast, but you can see just a little bit. You see where the purple and the brown and stuff mix? That's a problem. That is what I'm trying to avoid. I want to keep the separate colors in this. So what I could do for that is, if I wanted to, maybe add a little bit of purple right on top of that spot. And because it's on the edge, this actually kind of works out. Okay, so I'm going to come around the other side here. And I'm going to blow off. I want to see if I can blow that muddied part kind of off. I would pass out. I'm only blowing lightly. There we go. And now we've kind of solved the muddy problem. These also are paintings that I tend to fiddle with too much. And then I'd be like, why'd I do that? I should have stopped while I was ahead. All right, so I want to put a bit more of that bronze here. And now that I've looked at it, I've decided I wanted to add a little bit more over here. And I can look at it too, see, and right now it's pretty heavily green. So on this side, I may just add just the purple and bronze. So I definitely alter it as I go along. Make it work for me, you know what I mean? Ooh, hit the camera. See, and that ended up being a lot more purple than I intended to. But now, because it's so strongly purple, now I could add in a little bit of green over here. And also, I generally do this particular style of painting on larger canvases as well. I need to go to the other side. just kind of alter it as I go along, you know? I find what works as I'm going, because this also, because it is a style of fluid art, it is also unpredictable and tends to do what it wants. It is, Laura. I really enjoy it. And like I said, this is a big lesson in letting go, because there is so much you don't have control over. You know, like I can try and make the paint go where I want, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to listen to me. So that's the basic idea. And then I would just kind of leave this to fall. You see, it's still like getting kind of like bald over here. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this purple actually. Put that there. I really want some color right in that corner, but I don't want it to completely run off. There we go. That purple's staying a little bit. So, fun fact also, you have to be careful, because sometimes you'll get a little bit of paint blowback on your straw, and if you're not paying attention, I have totally put the paint end of the straw in my mouth. So you can see there's less paint around here because we've been blowing on the edges. This has the most paint, but at this point, I don't move this, and I let it start to dry on its own. Or if I do, I very carefully move it to the drawer where I have it level, where it's not going to be bothered or bumped or whatever. So, this is essentially what I do for... Hi, Leslie! And if I missed anybody, I apologize. I've been sort of... I get really focused when I do this, just because, I mean, you can see it's super messy, but it's super fun. I mean, I was able to do two very different style paintings with, you know, the same mixture of paint. So, if you are looking for something different, something fun to experiment with. Like I said, I came up with this formula. It's pretty budget friendly. You know, the Floetrol is pretty inexpensive. It's water, it's paint. I just get, you know, you don't want to use like craft paint, and you don't use tempera paint. Use acrylic paint. Tempera paint is a whole other kind of animal, and it will give you a completely different consistency. So most definitely use acrylic paint. You can experiment with all of these other, there's a lot of companies that put out fluid art paint. I haven't tried any of them, mostly because I have a formula that works for me. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, why change something that's good? Hi, Michaela. Love it. It makes me want to try it again. It is so fun. I mean, like I said, it took me a while, but you guys are benefiting from my many, many, many mistakes. And I have my handy formula for what I do for mixing it up. So like I said, my basic recipe is 1 part acrylic paint, 2 parts blending medium, 1 part distilled water, and then you add in your silicone. Sometimes you don't even need the silicone. So really, it just kind of depends on what you are trying to go for. And in fact, just because of the way this painting turned out, I feel like this little painting would almost be a good candidate for me adding like a little bit of extra texture to it. Just like I said, I have so much fun with texture. All right, I'm going to move this light out of the way. I'm going to bring up our other painting here, which, let's see, has it run? Yeah, it's run a little bit. It's a little bit off, but like I said, there's not a whole lot you can do to control a ton of it. But because it's run more than I would like, it may potentially be a good candidate for the texture. Let's see. But that's why it is oh so important that when you're doing this, make sure that you have a level surface. I'm going to shift this 1 second, okay? One moment. Okay. All right. I'm going to go put this in the drawer real quick before it all shifts. So give me 1 second, chat. 1 second, because knowing me, I will totally mess these up, and I actually really like how that small one turned out. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to go put it away in the drawer. Yeah, that one that we made, it ran a little bit more than I would like. I think that's part of the reason why I started doing this other style of like straw blowing technique, because I felt like I did have a little bit more control over it, you know? Yeah, Crystal, I'm going to, I think what I've actually... I bet I'm liking this. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my specific recipe. You know, I've done it in the video and everything, but I'm going to add my specific recipe to the Facebook group. So if you would like it, feel free to, if you're not part of the Facebook group, feel free to check that out. That is where I am going to go ahead and add that. But if you live in the Texas area and you would like to come take a class for this, that's going to be this weekend. But I'm pretty sure that none of you live in Texas. So, or if you do, you're not close enough to come. Although, no, I do have one follower who comes to my classes. It's really nice. I got to meet her in person and I, you know, share it on Facebook. You do? All right, Michaela, you can come down this way. But anyway, so look at my, hey, look, it's a mess. It's also fun too. Sometimes if you have, you can see here, see how like all these little cells. Where is it? Okay, so why don't you message me afterwards, Michaela? But it's gonna be, I'm kind of like in Central Texas. Deborah, I am about 2.5 hours from you. So yeah, I'm about 2.5 hours from Austin. But yeah, if you're interested, if seriously though, if you are interested in the class, send me a message and I will send you a link to the gallery's Facebook. Yeah, California's a little far. Look at this. Look how messy that is. That is so fun to look at, isn't it? But anyway, feel free to message me and I will give you the information for the class. It's going to be this weekend. Where can I find my schedules? Deborah, so I have my regular schedule posted in the community. But let's see. You can also do !schedule. That's for the streaming schedule. For the painting class, I only teach it about 3 to 4 times a year. We do it like once a season. And so this one coming up, this is going to be our holiday class. We're going to do silver and gold and green. And like I said, how far from Australia? It's a little way, Leslie. Little ways. Might be a little bit of a flight. See, and that's the nice thing too, is with drop cloth, I can just wrap it right up. And we call it good. Anyway, if you are interested in the class, you can message me and I will send you the information for it. My hands are pretty dry, so I think I can safely show you all too. I was working on this last night. I got a little bit more done. Got her working on her wing here and the smoke. So I was doing that last night. You're 20 minutes from Fort Worth. I'm about like 4 or 5 hours south of Fort Worth. Well, you know, I guess it's not really that much of a secret. I live very near Texas A&M. So it's all in that kind of area there. But anyway, yeah, so I know, like I said, I know this wasn't our normal, but it was kind of fun and we got to explore some other techniques. And like I said, this, you can screenshot this now too, but I'm going to put this in the Facebook group that's got your supplies, your recipe, all of that good stuff. So I'm going to put all of this there as well. Yes, Michaela. Yes, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's going to be, like I said, that's going to be this weekend. So if you're interested, I will send you the link to where you can buy tickets if you want. Like I said, it's going to be like this, but the difference is you're going to have me there, hands-on. I can help you with stuff. All the supplies will be there. Literally all you have to do is show up and have fun, and you don't even have to clean up the mess. So yay. The only catch is that because it takes a little while to dry, you have to come back to the gallery to pick it up because you can't take your painting with you that day because, well, you've seen how wet it is. Loved it. Something. Yeah, see, there you go. Encaustic wax this week. Yep, your turn, Laura. So, yeah. Well, I'm so glad that everybody enjoyed it. Like I said, I was a little worried because I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's just fun to mix it up sometimes, you know? Aw, thanks so much. All right. So I have emergency surgery next week, so poo. Oh, I'm sorry, Michaela. That's no fun. Well, like I said, I teach it 3 to 4 times a year. So we're going to be doing a Christmas one. And then the next one will probably be, you have Halloween fingers? I totally do. You know, I have a nice manicure, which it will show up once I wash my hands. But right now I am just covered in purple and green and white paint. Thanks, Laura. But I'll teach another class probably in the spring. I don't know exactly when yet. We usually decide after the next class. But yeah, we do kind of like a seasonal kind of thing. Oh, perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it then. I've got about a little bit of time before I go pick up the kiddo. But as you can see, I have a little bit of cleanup to do before I leave the house. So I'm going to go ahead and go Wednesday. Oh, awesome, Michaela. Perfect. Wednesday, we will be live again. Wednesday morning, we're going to do coloring again. I have a few work in progress. Maybe we'll start something new. Maybe we'll, I don't know. I've really been into our very own, right there, Laura Colors too, Laura Rafferty's circle portraits. Oh, I don't know, for those of you that saw it in the Facebook group, on Friday, I was suggested to get this special little eraser, which I did. So I got this super teeny tiny thing, which was fun. But then I also may or may not have picked up also the light tones color pencils. See, you guys tease that I'm the enabler, but you're all bad influences on me too. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so I haven't tried these out yet. I'm excited to. But this was fun. This was good. And like I said, I'm going to teach this weekend too. And yeah, otherwise, well, like I said, we'll be live Wednesday. We'll color something. And yeah, I think that's a bit. So thanks everyone for hanging out and chilling with me during my painting. And I will see you all in a couple of days. All right. Bye.